Welcome to the Wild Reawakening podcast. Hosts Amy and Kendall Evans take you on a journey to learn empowerment by accessing your intuition and reawakening your wild self. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute any medical or legal advice. Make sure to like and follow the Wild Reawakening podcast and stay connected with us at Wild Reawakening on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Visit wildreawakening.com. Join us in building a community of healing and connection. Get started today on your own path to a wild reawakening. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Reawakening podcast. This is the moon forecast video for the full moon coming up here on January 6th, 2023. It isn't the full moon in Cancer, and we are wrapping up this year with some feelings. So I'm going to jump on over to Amy. She's going to tell you a little bit about herself. I should probably introduce myself really quick, though. I'm Kendall with the Bohemian Tarot Girl. You can find me online at Facebook, Instagram. As far as our podcast goes, if you're listening to us, join us on YouTube. We also have the videos on Facebook. So, find us online and get connected with us. Amy, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Hi, I'm Amy. I'm with Wise Moon Energy and Wild Reawakening. This is exciting to be back. It's been over a year since we did a video. So I feel like not only are we coming in to close a chapter of the last year, but we are also getting ready to kind of leap into the next phase that is coming. So.
Oh yeah. So let's talk about this moon that we have coming up. I really feel like it's a super close to, we're already over the new year, in the Gregorian calendar system. But to me, this is almost like the close of that lunar new year and that energy that we've been having. And it's really leading us into some up and coming big shifts that are going to be happening. We have some retrogrades that are closing up. And so we're kind of reviewing and kind of closing that energy out. What were your takes on it?
Oh, yeah. So full moon in Cancer, January 6th. It is happening at 3:08 p.m. Pacific time. So adjust your clocks accordingly to that. And it's at 16 degrees Cancer. So what that means is if you go through Cancer, Cancer goes from 1 degree to 29 degrees. And so you look on your chart, which will have all 12 signs and all 360 degrees, and see where 16 degrees of Cancer falls. And that'll give you an idea of where this moon is falling in your chart. Each house represents a different part of your life. So this moon is going to affect everybody in a different way. So if you wanted to get a little more personalized to how it's going to affect you, take a look at your astrology chart to see. Like you said, we close out, standardly by our calendar, December 31st, and everyone starts looking at the new year, and, you always hear new year, new me, and yeah, this year is going to be the best, and we're going to leave that old year behind. And, but so many of the ancient traditions did not have our calendar system, and they followed their time by the moon. And so this moon in Cancer is actually the last moon of the cycle before we start over at the start of the new year. If you want to really get into it, the new year actually starts at the spring equinox. But for our sake, we can look at it as this being the first or the ending of the cycle before we start our traditional year. Full moons in general, when we look at full moons, they're a period of completing a cycle. It's, kind of everything coming to fruition. And then we release and give thanks before the new moon starts. And a new moon is traditionally, if you're working with moon energy, when you start creating and building and bringing in new things. So if you really want to take some more time to set intentions for the new year, We just did a whole video on setting intentions, and it was a lot of fun. So you can take a look at that video, and you have some time, a couple of weeks before the new moon in Aquarius, and then you can start really setting up some good intentions for 2023. But this moon in Cancer, this is actually, when I was looking into it, this is actually like a really good time to take a step back and to do a lot of reflection and a lot of looking over the past and going within and really evaluating yourself and your situation and your circumstances, looking at things that perhaps are coming up that are asking to be healed. Cancer, with every full moon, before I get ahead of myself, with every full moon, there's an opposition happening. Right now we have the sun in Capricorn. If you look at the very opposite end of the astrological chart, there's Cancer. So every full moon is when the moon is in exact opposition to the sun. And usually those signs have very different energies to them. So Cancer is a very masculine energy. It is very physically based. Cancer, is very much involved with the grounded earth, finances, work, your resources. And then on the opposite end, you have Cancer. And Cancer is ruled by the moon. So not only are we having a full moon in Cancer, but it is in its home element. The moon is in its home sign of Cancer. So the moon energy, symbolically, typically, is a very feminine energy. I mean, women's cycles, they're ruled by the moon. Emotions have to do with the moon. Your inward emotional state, your spirituality, your intuition, those are all moon elements. And that comes together with Cancer. So when we have this opposition between Capricorn and Cancer, I always think of Capricorn as kind of like the divine masculine or the father element. And then you have on the other end, you have Cancer, which is more like the divine feminine or the mother element. And so working to integrate these two and find a balance can sometimes be tricky, especially this time of year when we're coming out of Christmas. And it's always been do. I have my to-do list. I have to go to these parties. I have to take care of the presents. I have to, there's always all these things that we're focusing on. And so this period of time with this happening now is really giving us the space to come home to ourselves a little bit, to kind of relax into our emotional, spiritual intuition, kind of step back and reassess and look at some of the things that we might have been ignoring over the holidays. So,
yeah, I mean, with this new moon being so much tied to kind of wrapping up that emotional stuff that we've been working on throughout the year, we're currently going through, the fourth retrograde, Mercury retrograde, that started right before the end of the year. And we have Mars retrograde that's going to be ending before the next new moon. So it's really looking back at those key pieces, when that energy, like what happened to yourself throughout that energy shift, and really evaluating those pieces and making sure that you're releasing them into the universe, and you're thinking and letting them go and not holding on to them as we move forward into this new cycle that we have coming up. And there's such great energy coming up that I feel like there's like an extra emphasis to letting this go and really emotionally healing yourself and letting it go.
There's some really key, because it's never always just about the moon. A moon is a 3-day energy, and it cycles through every single month, so I know a lot of people, they get really caught up on like, oh, the moon is in my sign right now, but it's 3 days. But what it is it's an energy that starts a cycle. And so when you look at it, it's like you have the cycle. And I know we've talked about this before if you've seen videos, but it's been a while. So you have the cycles between the full moons and the new moons, and that's about 2 weeks. And then you also have the cycle between this full moon and the new moon in Cancer that'll happen in July. And then you also have the other cycle that goes from full moon to full moon, which is a full year cycle. And so there are things that are going to start shifting based on what happens now that will be affected later on. But we also have a whole other solar system of planets. Yes. And those each have their own energy. And those things will make aspects to this moon as well. And that creates another energy. And an aspect is like when it's in the astrology chart and where it's placed and the interaction between the two. So if you're a beginner and you're wondering what some of these things are, that's kind of a good general basis. So you mentioned Mercury retrograde, which started on the 29th. And that'll go to yeah. And Mercury, you know, it rules communications and transportation and travel. And so, of course, right as soon as Mercury was starting to enter its shadow period, which is like the week before it actually goes retrograde, you'll start to see some of those disruptions. And I don't know I don't know how you could have missed it. I'm so far out of like the news loop, but the systematic breakdown of the airlines over Christmas. I mean, that is a very Mercury retrograde thing to happen. I usually try to avoid making big travel plans when Mercury is retrograde, or at least be very like, have all my ducks in a row and triple checked and backup plans. And that's just something that I have noticed and prepare for. Oh
yeah, no, I was just in LA, and my friend apparently was panic texting me while I was down there because I wasn't responding to her. And it wasn't until I got back on the airplane and I got all of the texts, and it actually came in as I was heading back to Seattle, and then boom, all the texts. And I was like, sorry.
Yeah, delays in communication. I mean, it's just, you know, this happens 3 to 4 times a year. So if you can look at your calendar and plan for it, it does make it a little bit easier, but it's not always chaos. And part of Mercury retrograde is so that you have the ability to slow down and come back and reflect and have a different look at things. Sometimes things that maybe you started initiating before will come back and you can revisit them and have new insights into them. Like it's an integration when a planet goes retrograde. It's like it goes forward, and then it's like, okay, well, now that you have all of this forward motion, we're going to take a step back so you can process it all and integrate it into your life a little bit better. And so that happening right now at this time with this moon, it's really giving you the opportunity to become more reflective and a little more introverted and a little more aware of maybe some things that you have been rushing through life ignoring. And then Mars.
Oh, Mars.
Mars has been in Gemini. So Mars is typically in a sign for, I think, maybe like 6 weeks. This Mars has been in Gemini for, by the time it leaves Gemini, it'll be 7 months.
Yeah.
That's a really extended time to be in a planet or in a sign. So I think it's the end of January, it goes direct again. And it'll stay traveling through Gemini for another bit of time, but we're going to see some forward motion finally. And then the last one that's going retrograde at the moment is Uranus, which is in Taurus, and that's a 7-year energy about. It's a long planet because it's so far out in the solar system. And Uranus is kind of the great awakener. It shakes things up. It's exciting. It wants to make changes. And it has a very positive aspect to this moon. And so as you're kind of integrating and going within, you may have some kind of epiphany or some kind of realization that is really going to inspire you and motivate you and excite you for something that maybe you hadn't considered before. So pay attention to what is coming in for you, or what ideas you're getting, what motivations you have, because there's probably a really good purpose.
Yeah, for me, looking at these two energies, that transition is to me like a real key moment in this kind of calendar year, because that energy that we've been holding on to for so long, and that that the aspect is finally changing, really by letting go of some of these emotions that it's been brought up during this time as we transition is key to that forward momentum. It's really just like the world has not been happening, and then all of a sudden I feel like we're going to kick on, and it's going to be a little bit of a forward movement.
Oh yeah, and there's one other big thing that's happening, and I almost failed to mention it, but the end, well, in 2020, Saturn entered Aquarius, and that was squaring. When a square is a really tense energy between two planets, was squaring Uranus. And we kept hitting this square. And right as soon as it began doing that, that's when things started shutting down. And if you look at Taurus rules resources, it's the material, it's, all of that. And so to have your material world be so affected the way it was with the pandemic and everything, the astrologers who kind of had evaluated this stuff kept saying, it's going to be like this until Saturn leaves Aquarius, which is happening this month on the 23rd. Saturn will leave Aquarius and move into Pisces. And so this tense energy that we've had that has caused all of these restrictions and shutdowns and everything is now going to be lifted. And I know like you've probably already started feeling it now. I know there's been a lot of, stuff happening over the holidays, but the shift is coming. That energy will be behind. This is the same energy that happened in the 80s with the AIDS pandemic. This is the same that happened with the flu in 1912. It's a cyclical planetary energy that for whatever reason brings in this kind of element. So we got to live through it. And thank God it's over.
I'm happy it's over too. So, as far as what people should think about when, this full moon is happening, is there some sort of activity or, some sort of focus that you think they should put on as far as like their work?
I really think it's a good idea at this time to, I know I've said it several times, but to just be a little reflective. Like if you want to do some journaling, if you want to look at some of the things that are coming up for you that are still kind of lingering wounds, especially childhood wounds, because Cancer has to do with the mother and the father and the family aspect. Letting things go and giving gratitude to how far you've come from there to now, and really coming home to yourself. I mean, sometimes you can't change the relationship that you have with your parents, or you can't change your childhood, you can't change your past, but you can definitely at any time decide that you're going to start showing up for yourself and loving yourself and honoring yourself. And that's a big key, I think, with this moon, is just to pay attention to what it is that your soul is calling you to do. How you can love yourself better, how you can create better boundaries, how you can start being more gentle with yourself and remove some of the dialogue maybe that you have going on in your head about not being enough and needing to be more or do more. And especially that type of energy comes in with the new year. You're like, I'm going to set, my resolutions, I'm going to do more and I'm going to be more. And it's like maybe take a step back and look at all the ways that you are already so much more, just by being who you are.
I think that's a great point. That gentle energy that really this moon is asking us to reflect on within ourselves. And I love that, it's really bringing us home within ourselves, before we kind of shift out into some new energy. So, like Amy said, take a moment and just really, come home to yourself and be gentle with yourself. Don't overthink it. Work on healing yourself and you'll make changes in your life.
Yep.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you again for joining us. We put on a new moon and full moon video for you. Make sure that you stay connected with us on YouTube. It is available for a podcast option if you prefer just to listen versus seeing us in person talk. Make sure you get connected. I'm at the Bohemian Tarot Girl. Amy, go ahead and give a shout out for yourself.
I'm at Wife Moon Energy on Facebook. And if you want to join our page, we will be getting ready to do some intention setting workshops for the first new moon of the year. So looking forward to that and seeing you there.
Yes. And also remember, if you're interested, we have a crazy fun retreat coming up at the towards the end of April, where we're going to be celebrating that new moon and solar eclipse. It's going to be held at the Joshua Tree Retreat Center. We have some great stuff like a private sound bath activity, and we have I'm going to be teaching tarot. Amy's going to be doing some stuff with human design. And then we also have a medium coming in to do a group reading. So we have lots of really cool, neat stuff. And the link is below if you want to join us. We currently have an early bird special going on. Space is limited, so sign up. All right, everyone. We will see you next time.